Hi there everyone. In this video, we're going to be making a forum web application in ASP.NET Core. Our application will be able to have multiple users, each one of those being able to post a question in the forum or write an answer to somebody else's question. We will start by creating a couple of models in the database, then we will create an auto-generated controller, and most of the video we will handle the functionalities of the forum. So make sure to keep watching. So firstly, let's just create a new project with an MVC template. Click on next. I'll give it a name like forum. And don't forget to make the authentication type of individual accounts. Okay, so this is our empty project. Now let's just add two classes for the models. In this video, we're gonna need, in this project, we're gonna need two classes, one for the questions and one for the answers. So just like Stack Overflow or Quora, when somebody makes a question and then people are supposed to respond to that. So we're just gonna need an int ID property. Then a string for a title, another one for the description of the question, and then we're gonna relate the question model to the users and of course to the answers. So firstly, we need an identity user ID, which is a string. Actually, if you check the ASP.NET users table, and of course a property of identity user, and I name it just user. So we are connecting the question model to the ASP.NET user model that is created when we created the authorization type of individual accounts. So I'm just gonna need to specify here the foreign key. Okay, next let's just create the answer module as well. And again, I'm gonna need an int ID property, a title of type string. I'm actually gonna name it content because for the answers, I just need the content, just one. We don't need the title. And we're also connecting the answers model to the identity user. So firstly to the identity user ID and then to the identity user. So basically, whenever somebody posts a question or answers it, we're going to connect that answer or that question to a specific user of the application. Just need to specify here my identity key, the foreign key, which is identity user ID. And I need to make it nullable so that we don't have problems later in the database. And also I'm going to need to connect the answer model to the question model. So I'm going to need the question ID and also a question property of type question. I need to make it nullable as well. Okay, so now I need to specify here the connection of the questions to the answers. So one question can have multiple answers. That's why I'm going to be needing a list of answers, named answers here, which I need to set to be nullable, because sometimes when you first create the question, it doesn't have to have an answer there. So next we'll go to the context and specify the two database set instances for the question and for the answer model. So whenever we create a new model, we need to specify the DB set instances. Okay, firstly, I'm going to need to import the forum mode, so the project's models, basically just our two models that we created. So now what I need to do is to create the database for the project. So I'm going to need the server name, which I can get when I open up the SQL Server Studio. Okay, I'm just copying this. I'll just set a name to the database, like forum data. Click OK. Now in the properties window down there, we just need to copy the connection string, which is basically just the address of the database, and we need to store it in appsettings.json. We have a default connection string here, we just need to substitute it. Okay, I'm also gonna need to make the encryption to false, because I'm not connecting it with a password or something to the database. And in program.cs, you can see here that it is the connection string with the context are connected by default. So basically just the first line just connects the context to the database using the connection string. And we also have here the service for the identity, which we needed to make require confirmed account we need to set it to false, because we don't need to confirm the accounts when we create them for this project. I'm just running the project now, and I'll wait until it opens up. I'm just gonna need to add the migrations now to the database. I just need to update the database to save the changes. Okay, it's done. In case you haven't installed these packages, I already have them installed from the previous projects, but the identity.entity framework core and the SQL server and the tools package here are essential to our project. So the last two are for migrating our changes to the database, and the first one is for the authentication. Okay, so let's just create a new controller now. We're just gonna make it with the views included in it. I just specified there the name of the model for the controller and the context, and this basically when you set a template with the view pages, it creates by default the CRUD operations and also the view pages for that controller. Okay, so we have here the methods for all our CRUD operations. We just need to make a bit of changes to it. So we need to include, besides the user, we need to include also the answers. The answers to the index page. So when we open up our first page, we can get the data for the not only for the questions, but also for the users and the answers. I'm just going to go quick to the questions views, to the index view. And I'm just going to change it a little bit because here we can see it's a table. I'm just changing the header firstly. I'm deleting the entire table thing. Okay, I'm just going to delete this all. And I'm just going to take a H4 header for the title of the questions. Then I'm going to display the content, the description of it, in a paragraph tag. I'm also gonna need to display like something for the total answers to the question and who posted the question. So in the front page, this is what you'll see. So item.answers.count counts how many answers are there to the specific question. Okay, I'm just gonna view this page firstly in the browser to see what we're doing. Okay, so until now we just have the header. Okay, so I'm just going to register an account firstly, so that when we create something or when we comment or when we write an answer, we can see who posted it. So just an ordinary name for the email, which is also the username in our case. So by default, when you use the identity authentication in ASP.NET, I'm just going to register the user. You can see there on the nav bar, hello, and the name of the user. So I'm just going to go to the questions tab where the index is, and I'm just going to try to create something, to create a question. I don't know, I just want to take a long question so it seems like a normal site. I'm just copying this from Stack Overflow, this title and its content. So it's just something long. And normally the user ID shouldn't be shown here, but the rest works okay. So I'm gonna need to change a little bit the styling as well, because I don't see who posted it and it's a little bit messed up there. Okay, so I'm just gonna write in a separate paragraph or in a separate line. Just gonna display the answers there and also who posted it, because I forgot to do. So posted by @item.user.username. That's how normally we should take the user. In the create view page, I don't need the user ID to be displayed because usually you don't see that in your application. So I'm just going to import some libraries here. So we need to import the Microsoft identity and a couple of other things. We need to inject them to the view page. So the sign-in manager with an argument of identity user and a name, like sign-in manager. And the same thing for the user manager. So that we have the information to the user that is currently logged in, which currently wants to create a question. That's the proper way we can take the user ID for the question. And down below, I'm just gonna, okay, so this is a select tag. It needs to be an input tag. So this will be linked to the identity user ID when we submit the form. And the value should be, that's what we are taking from the user that is currently logged in. So user manager dot get user ID of the user. So this just gets the ID of the user that it's currently logged in. And we actually don't need the label here, and we should make the input as type hidden, so we don't see this. So the form needs the ID of the user, but the person who creates the question doesn't need to see it. You don't usually make the IDs visible in the forms. So let's go to the controller one more time. Okay, so this we don't need. This was created by itself. Okay, this also we don't need. So usually when we create the controller with the view pages, you just need to see things if something is wrong. You just need to fix a few things when you don't create the controller from scratch. So this looks okay. We see the name of the person who posted the question. We see that we have no answers until now. And okay, we need to go and fix a little bit the details page as well. Okay, when we create a new question, we can see here that it looks better. We don't see the ID anymore. I'm just trying one thing. I don't know. So the idea of it is you make a title to your question or the main thing what you're talking about, and then you just write more about the specifics of a question you have. Okay, I'm just gonna go to the details page. Okay, I just think I'll make the header. I'm just gonna delete mostly all of them. I'm just leaving the button to go back to the main list. So I'm just gonna display a header for the title of the question. So this is the way to import the title at model.title, because in the top of the page we are importing just one model, not a list of models as we were doing in the index view page. Next, of course, a paragraph with the description of the question. So at model.description. And another line with just the name of the person who posted it. So in the details method in the controller, we need to include the answers, because they won't be connected to the questions model. And we need to write then include, so okay, I wrote here comments, it's answers. So in this way, firstly we include the answers and then the user to its answers. So that is pretty much the way you write it. And here, after we write the question, we need a form so that people can write their answer, or like a comment section. I'm just gonna create an add answer method later in the controller, but for now I'm just leaving it like that. I'm just gonna give here just some form group styling to the elements of the answer. So firstly we need an input for the, I think just for the content. Okay, so the name, in the name property of input, we're just gonna write the name of the property of the answers model. So firstly we need to input there the content of the answer. I'll just give the class like form control, because that's usually the Bootstrap default or most common classes for forms. And actually I'm just gonna make it a text area because it looks better. It looks more like a comment section. Then I need 2 tags. I'm just gonna copy it here. And I'm gonna need then an input for the ID of the question and for the ID of the user. And I'm gonna make them hidden as well. And in the name tag, we write the name of the property of the answer object or model. So here we have an identity user ID and a question ID that we need to take from the form. But of course the user doesn't need to see it, that's why we made it hidden. And for the value, we're gonna need what we basically did in the create view page. I'm just gonna copy this here because we need the currently logged in user. And there we will store the ID of the user that is basically posting the answer. So user manager dot get user ID of the current user. I'm just copying it one more time, and here instead I'm writing question ID, and the value actually here is just the ID of the model. So in this details view page we have a question model, so we'll just take it this way. We'll take the ID of the question. And lastly, we just need a submit button. Doesn't need a name property. So for the value, we just write what's written in the button, what's displayed in the button. And for the class, I'm just giving it the button and a button info class, which is just like a light blue something color. And here on top of above the form, I'm just gonna display the questions, the answers. When somebody types them, adds an answer, they will be displayed above. So just need a header for the answers. I'll just make it all answers. So I'll just make a for each loop to loop through all the answers. So for the answers in model.answers, I'm just taking a paragraph, and inside of it I will store the answer.content and the person who wrote the answer, which is answer.username, I think. As I said, the username is the name of the email in our case because we haven't specifically specified that, but it's okay for our project. And here I'm just going to need an HR tag, which is basically an HTML tag that only just prints a big underline below each comment, so they are separated kind of from each other. So here I'm just going to make that add comment method. So I'm just going to copy the post create method because it's similar. I'm just making it a post method, and the name of the method is add answer. And it takes, let me see the answer model one more time. Okay, so it takes an ID, a content, identity user ID, and the question ID. So I'm just making the changes here. And of course it takes not a question but an answer and displays, I just name it answer, the variable. So if the model is valid, I'm adding the answer to the context, saving the changes, and basically I just need to redirect then to the details page. But when we redirect to the details page, we need the question model actually. So I'm just importing here a question model, a question. So first I need a question variable to store the information from the questions context. So I'm including there the answers. So I'm including there the answers from the questions contest and then the users of that answers. That's basically pretty much the syntax for it. Okay, so I'm gonna need to specify exactly the specific questions. So I'm just writing first or default async. Okay, let's make an await because it's an async await method. And so basically here I'm just taking checking for the ID of the question from the context and check if it is equal to the answer.question ID, which is the object that we take from the form. I hope it makes sense. And then I'm just going to need to return the details view with the question as an argument with a question object, with a question variable. So let me just view this in browser and just see if we've made any mistakes. Let's go to the details page to see the comments. Okay, I was just about to do it. So I forgot to include here. Firstly, we need to include the users of the questions. So basically, firstly, you need to include the users of the questions, then the answers of the question models. And when we write then include, it only includes the users of the answers, not the users of the questions. Pretty much this is it, but we need to, I'm just copying it here, and then I write this in the details method as well. I think now it has to be fine. So basically, every time when a model has this external links to other models, you should just be careful with the includes that you write in the methods. So now it looks good. Everything is shown okay. This is our form. I'm just going to try to write an answer and just see then how it is displayed above. So just marketing my channel there. So that's how you display the answers. And when there are a lot of answers, they're gonna be separated by this underline, by this big underline. So let me just try to have another user so we can see that the other user can also comment there. I'm just creating one named James. Registering it, and I'm just gonna go to the questions tab one more time. Okay, let's go to the details. So we see there that the total answers was 1. It's changed because we wrote an answer. Here I'm just gonna try and write something as well, so that we see that it catches the username of the person who writes the answer. It's like, how can I learn? I don't know. This doesn't make sense in this case for the question above, but that's not the purpose of the tutorial. Okay, we see that it's displayed again above there. Let's just try to create a question with our new user. Let's create new. I don't know. I just want to take something long, that it looks better. That's why I'm searching in Stack Overflow. Just writing the title there. I just copy a part of the answer of the question, creating it, and there we can see this big question here with 0 answers. The first one has 2 answers. Everything is displayed good. It's the name of the user. So the functionalities are working pretty much okay. So one thing we haven't actually considered is that there we see that the first user can edit the post of the, so the second user, James, can now edit the question of Mason, which shouldn't be happening because we didn't make any checks in the method to check that only the user who posts something can edit or delete it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'll go to the edit method in the controller. And okay, actually I could just make another if statement there, but I'm just using what I have here because we don't really need this to check if the question is null. I mean, we can skip it, we don't need it, but we can skip this. So I'm checking if the question.identity user ID is equal to the user that is currently logged in. So this is the way we find the current logged in user when we're in the controllers page. So just write user.find first value, and it takes as an argument as parameter the claim types .name identifier, which is basically just the ID of the user. I think we have imported something here above, but everything imported was by default when we made the authentication type as individual accounts when we firstly created the projects. And that's how we can access this user variable here, user function. So I'm just checking here if the question if the user who posted the question is the same with the user who is currently logged in. Actually, I just need to copy it and paste it to the delete function, to the delete method in the controller as well, because we don't want other users to delete our questions. So I'm just going to paste it here. I mean, I could just leave it that if loop also, but I just substituted it. Okay, let's just run the project once and see if it works. So now that we're logged in with the James account, we shouldn't be able to edit or delete the accounts of Mason, or the questions of Mason. Okay, let's just check it here and go to the edit one. Okay, this doesn't work, it's not working. I think there's a problem in the logic. Okay, so we need to make it a not equal sign, not equal. So we should check if these are not equal with each other, the model's user ID with the currently logged in user. Then we should be returning not found when they are not the same, not when they are the same. Hopefully this works now. Okay, we can reach the page because we're not the user who created the question. We can try delete. Okay, I forgot to change that line in the delete method. I'm just gonna do that right now. So we need just to change that little bit piece of logic there. Okay, so now we can access it because we're not the same user. So I'm just gonna write the authorized tags above each method, because if some user is not logged in, we want them to see the questions and the details page. We don't want them to create a question or to delete them or to do anything else or to write an answer. So we just need to put these authorized tags above each function that we don't want users to have access to in case they are not logged in. So this is all this authorized tags make. So I'm just putting it in front above the edit method as well. And in the delete methods also we need that. So I'm just running the project now and check if in case this has worked. So I'll just log out for a moment and go to the tab one more time. So we should see the questions tab, but we shouldn't be able to create something. Or we shouldn't be able to go to the edit tab to edit anything. But of course we can go to the details to see the answers and all. So that worked okay. So lastly, I'm just gonna change a little bit the layout, the CSS of the page, some things, and the structure of it a little bit. So I'm just going to the layout page. I'm actually gonna make it the color of the nav bar. I'm making it like a light blue background. I mean, the page functions correctly, but I'm just changing this a little bit in order to look better. I'm changing the nav bar items, so we can only have the questions nav bar to let it as home. So when you go to home, you see the list of all the questions. Then I'm just writing another nav item to be the create. So I'm just naming it add a question or something. So when you click on it, you can add a question. So I'm just leaving these two navbar items. Submit a question or something. So it's easier to navigate through the whole application. I'm just going to go to the root CSS, site.css. I'm just changing the background of the page as well. I'm just making it like a light gray kind of color, like white smoke. I'm just checking it to see the application, how it looks like. We can see the navbar items, we can see the white smoke background, but the navbar, so the navigation bar, it's not light blue, so I think, okay, I forgot here, by default the navbar item has a couple of classes by Bootstrap that specified its color. I just need to delete that. Because they were overlapping each other. So now it looks much better. When you go to submit a question, you can submit a question, you can create a question. Okay, I'm just logging it in to see that. Okay, so we see when we, in the home tab, we see all the questions and the submit a question, we can create a question. But when we firstly load the application, we can see that it redirects us to that home controller, to that home page, which is empty. So I'm just going to need to change that as well. The other pages are looking fine. So in the index page, I'm going to delete this link to create something, to create a question, because we made that navbar item to submit a question. And in the program.cs, we can change here the default controller, which I want to set it as questions. So firstly, I'm closing the application now, but when we start our application the first time, it just shows us the questions, the list of the questions. So from the questions controller, the index page. This looks better now. This looks okay. So this was it for this video. These were the main functions of our forum application. We saw that we can create, so this basically was just an example of an application with multiple users, and it had some pretty nice functionalities that we can use actually in other applications as well. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.